Welcome to The Gift of the Struggle. I am Elizabeth Denham. I am here with special guest, Karen Kimsey-Sward, and I cannot wait for this discussion. She's got such a great story to tell. But before we start, I'm going to give you a little background information on Karen. Karen has worked at Dale Carnegie Chicago and is an executive coach. She's dedicated her career to helping people reach their next level of success, working with leaders across industries, building skills that drive connection, confidence, and results. But her story goes beyond business. After facing a cancer diagnosis, Karen has discovered unexpected gifts, deepened relationships, clarity, stronger faith, and renewed commitment to living fully and authentically. Today, she blends her professional expertise with the personal lessons she's learned on that journey, inspiring others to lead with courage and live with purpose. So, Karen, welcome.
You. Good to be here. Nice to talk about
to have
this.
you.
Yeah,
Yes,
thanks.
it is. It's not something you normally discuss in the course of your life.
It's not. This is the first time that I've spoken publicly about this.
Well, and it's so important, and the way that you've navigated this, we've known each other for a while now, has been admirable. And you are one of those people who charge forward no matter what. You keep going, you're the Energizer Bunny, you keep leading, you don't let things slow you down. But that doesn't mean that underneath all of that, there was a lot going on that people did not necessarily see or know, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
So let's start first with who you are as a leader and as a business person, because I think that sets the stage for the journey that you in particular went through and the ways that you handled it and the ways that you communicated it. So tell us a little bit about the history of your professional life and just the kind of personality you have as a leader.
I'll even, gosh, personal life can go, I'm old. It goes way back. So a lot of what I do is work with, individuals, leaders, companies on, on getting to the next level in
Mhm.
so many different areas and how to be great leaders. So we say I need to make sure that in leading Dale Carnegie Chicago, I practice what I preach and culture, building a culture and making
Mhm.
sure how I lead, what I do, what I model. I have to make sure that's front and center at all times. So I'm not a hypocrite. And so I really have
Mhm.
lived my life that way and try to live my leadership. Some days I'm better than others. And so I try to be that example. And so that's why having that focus and then going through this diagnosis, it
Mhm.
really made me stop and say, okay, I need to lead myself through this and lead others through this as well, and
Mhm.
continue being that example, which is hard to do when you
Well,
have
it
a,
is
a,
hard to
well, a
do.
life-threatening event.
Well, and the balance of doing the things you need to do emotionally and physically and all those things combined with this leadership and maintaining a culture and leading in the way that you would hope you would be led, if you were working for you,
Yes.
basically. But let's take a step back and talk about the diagnosis, and talk about really the struggle of this experience and set the stage for so that we can talk about how you got through it. Tell us about your original diagnosis and how that happened.
I pride myself. If you think about,
Mhm.
we always have ways that we see ourselves, right? And I always saw
Mhm.
myself as a strong, confident, healthy. I mean, I'd be like, well, I think I eat well. I
Mhm.
exercised. I worked hard on having a positive mindset. So all of that I felt like was in place. But every year I would have a healthy exam. And that's just one of the things I would do. I would get the blood work. So when I went in last July and had my healthy exam, something was nagging me that I needed to get. I've been reading about women and heart attacks and everything. So something kept
Mhm.
nagging me in my mind. Why don't I get something to check my heart? So there's this heart exam. For those of you that don't know, there's a heart exam you can do, and it's pretty easy. I think it was like $95. And
Mhm.
it took a look at my heart, all the different, the wiring, all the different, Don't know all the technical terms, but I do
Mhm.
know when I was laying there having it, the technician was like, "Wow, you're healthy. Whatever you're doing, keep doing. You don't have any, plaque. Wow, this is so good." So I left there all like, very much. I think I even called my daughter. I'm like, "I'm good. This is great. Yay
Giving
me.
yourself a pat on
Yeah,
the
yay
back.
me." Exactly. Well, then the next day, I get notified from my doctor, and she's like,
Mm.
"What's interesting is, yes, your heart's great. We noticed something on the exam. Your spleen is double the size of a normal
Ooh.
spleen." And it was a shock. Well, then what do? I go and I take a look at, Google everything, and it's like,
You
okay,
did
this
the
is not
bad
good.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it pointed right to cancer immediately.
Mm.
She's like, okay, we're not gonna, let's do a couple more tests, and then we'll do our blood test, which we normally do. Well, then as that all started coming in, um, wow, you talk about a just get blown away. My blood tests were off. It showed I had abnormalities in my spleen.
Mm.
So it was a total absolute life changing, and we're talking minute. The minute you hear that, everything changes. It's just like what and wow.
Well, and so how long from this healthy well check to the word you have cancer?
She had told me, okay, let's say it kind of goes in stages. So she had
Hmm.
said after some of this testing, that was only like maybe 2 weeks. And she
Hmm.
said, don't nothing to be worried about. Okay. And there's a whole story with her where she didn't really talk to me. I have so many lessons on that where it was all done by email. Don't worry, but I need to refer you to an oncologist. I'm like, don't worry. I think I need to worry about this.
Yes,
Is
that's
that
an alarming
crazy?
word.
Don't worry. And so I then kept calling, and I couldn't find anyone. She gave me like 4 or 5 recommendations. No one could see me. They were like, "Oh, we can see you in 4 months." I'm like, so imagine the panic I had. Well,
Mm.
just a total absolute. I call these God winks, where I have things that
Yeah.
happen to me where in my journey where things happened along the way. I had happened to have a an exam with my gynecologist. And so the next day I went in there and I was in imagine pure panic. As much as I talk
Hmm.
to people about mindset and faith and not fear, I was in a little bit of I, I don't know what to do.
Right.
And she sat down, looked at my results and said, "Yeah, you do have cancer.
Mm.
And you need to go see somebody." She wrote it out, the name of the person, wrote out immediate. Within a week, I had an appointment with someone. I mean, isn't that amazing? That is a God wink,
Yeah,
you
that is a
know?
God wink. And just to bring out this point about you talk about faith, you talk about no fear, you talk about all those things, but also sometimes those are tools that drive you to do what needs to be done. So
Yes,
without the panic, without the fear, you may not have moved so quickly into asking everybody questions and trying to get in with
exactly.
somebody. So I think sometimes in listening to that nagging voice in your head that there was something that you should go check out,
Mhm.
I would say that's another God wink that something was driving you to take an extra step maybe and do this heart check, even though that wasn't the issue.
Exactly.
That kind of
Exactly.
led you down this path, right? Of discovery.
And listen to your gut. And
Hmm.
and you know me, Elizabeth. I'm very much like hard driving type A. So I was like, nuh-uh, I'm not waiting till October.
Right.
I'm going to do this. And even you're right, all the gut things. Listen to your gut.
Hmm.
Even if a doctor says something, question it, think about it, go somewhere else. And that was one of the things that sometimes I think we weren't raised that way. My mom's like, listen to the doctor. I'm like, no, we need to question. I love doctors. And we need to make sure that we're an advocate for ourselves as well. And I think
That's
sometimes
so
we get into
true.
that fear and we don't
Hmm.
do that.
Yes, and I think that one thing that this could lend a message to is, especially for women, I think we are taught not to question, or we're conditioned in that way. And I think my epiphany was having children, and I had a child that was on a medication, and I don't know whether it was the doctor or the pharmacy, but someone had filled it for twice the dose. and I didn't realize it.
Wow.
And he was just drunk as a skunk on too much medicine. And, so these things throughout life, I learned to check everything because no one is above a mistake, whether it's a doctor or a pharmacy. No one is above not knowing an answer. I've never respected a doctor more than one time when I went in and he said, I don't know the answer to this. He was the pediatrician and he said, will you ask your neurologist this question next time you go and come back and report to me so that I can learn? And I felt so comforted by that. And so I think one of these lessons, like you're saying, is self advocacy for women, especially with a big diagnosis like yours, is
Critical.
critical to getting the best care that you can.
It's critical, and and just finding that person you're comfortable with. So I'm blessed because the person she gave to me or sent me to, I went to University of Chicago. We have an amazing cancer center here,
Mhm.
and they got me in, and he was just like, "Yeah, you do. You have cancer, and we don't know what kind." He said, "But we're going to figure that out. So we're going to do a PET scan and we're going to do a bone marrow." And it was one of those things where he said, he just said, he looked right at me and he goes, "I'm going to take care of you.
Mm,
We're going to get through this." Okay. Those words were so amazing. So I knew, I'm like, okay, I'm in good hands. I'm in good hands. I'm going to question. I'm going to write notes and everything, but I just felt like he was going to help me in this journey. So from that time, you'd asked me the question, the length of time.
mhm,
So from that time, it was a month before I was fully diagnosed. So I had 4 weeks of not knowing if I had something that I was going to die very quickly from or
mhm,
something that was longer. That was probably the hardest, like 4 weeks, because I had to choose every day on faith, fear, faith, fear. And people
mhm.
would say to me, it's funny, and I have a whole thing on that one too, on what to say and not to say. But because I told a few friends, and they're like, people would say, "Oh yeah, I know. I've heard you've got to have a good mindset." It goes way beyond mindset. You do, but it is a choice every day on,
Mhm.
my faith and how I'm going to do that and and how I'm going to choose to show up, because the fear creeps in all the time, especially when you don't know.
Yeah. Yes, I can
So yeah,
imagine. You don't have any idea whether it's the prognosis is immediate, dysfunction and destruction of your life, or
yes,
survival is most
yeah,
likely. It could be anywhere in that whole gamut of
right,
options. And
right,
so how did you do that? How did you hype yourself up every day to get through the day? Because you
yeah.
really never stopped working throughout all this.
No, no. And that initially, that 4 weeks, I didn't really tell anybody at work because I felt
Mm.
like it's almost like, well, I could be dead in a day or, whatever. No, I mean, really. So
Yeah,
until
you didn't
I
know.
thought, until I have information, I'm going to tell, my close family and a couple of
Mhm.
friends, and because I needed prayers. I believe in
Of
the power
course you
of prayer,
did.
and I know I needed prayer. So
Yeah.
what got me through is I had a great spiritual advisor from church that I went to immediately. He helped me, gave me resources, helped me praying, and then just staying with my friends and just talking and calling and saying, "Okay, I'm scared." And so really kind of working through that every day. But also I think work does help. I mean, I even went on a work trip for one of those weeks. I know. I
Wow.
went and worked with a client. I'm like, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna ignore this because I'm great at compartmentalizing, which that's also I can overuse that strength and that can be a great weakness too. But I'm like, I'm
Right.
just gonna go for it. So that's how I did it. I think I just blocked it out over here, did the PET scan, did the bone marrow aspiration. So it was fine. So then fast forward to 4 weeks, I'm sitting in my office and my doctor calls, which is great. And he goes,
Mhm.
"Karen, it's doctor." He said, "This is worse than I thought." Okay, imagine that. This is worse than I thought. But he said, "But what you have stage 4 follicular lymphoma." He goes, "It's not curable, but it is treatable. So we can treat you, but this is how it's going to be." But he goes, "It's all over your body. It's in your bone marrow. It's everywhere." He goes, "I am so surprised you don't have more symptoms." And it was one of those where I put my computer, just kind of closed my computer, left my office, and just went and sat in my car. And you know what I mean? It was like nothing else matters at this point. My health matters. So
Mhm.
after I called my family, um, within the next couple of days, got my team together and talked to them because I was all about always transparency, how we create a culture, it's
Mhm.
who we are, how I'm as a leader. I thought I have to live this. And so I told them everything. It was very transparent. I said, I'm going to keep you updated all the way. This is how I want it to roll. And feel free to ask me questions. I wanted to be that transparent person because if you
Mhm.
don't, people start filling in things. They do. They start filling in the blanks with things that probably aren't true. And I'm like, no. So my team totally rallied around me. And it was just amazing. It took our culture to a next level.
That is amazing. And I think a lot of times in corporate America, people often don't want to show that vulnerability or look at it as a weakness or keep it under wraps as best they can. And I feel like a lot of times that just fosters the rumor mill because somebody will catch wind of something or you will
Mhm.
confide in somebody who can't keep a secret or
No,
whatever it
it's
is.
yeah.
And that can be destructive because then
Right.
you lose all of that trust.
Yeah.
But when you're giving that information to your team as the leader, I mean, how did you express more confidence than you felt? Did you how did what was the tone of that and how do you relay that information? Because you still have to maintain that leadership role,
Mhm.
um, but also being transparent, like you were saying.
Yeah. Okay, this is another piece of me where I'm very stubborn. So once
Hmm.
I had that moment in the
Hmm.
car
Hmm.
and talk with my spiritual advisor and everything, I'm like, we got this. We got this. And it's not just I've got this, but the prayers have this. We're going to get through this. And no matter what, because the faith isn't I'm going to be healed. The faith is I've got help all the way
Hmm.
around. Going to get through this. So I actually really felt it. I mean, I did. There was this amazing peace that came over me and this drive to I'm going to get through this. Don't know
Hmm.
how, but I'm going to get through this. So when I did tell the team, I really felt it. I did not feel it was kind of weird. And it's weird when you tell people. So when you're on the other end of telling people about your illness, it's
Hmm.
they don't know how to react or take it. They
Yeah.
really don't. I feel bad for people that when you give news like this because they don't know how to
Hmm.
react many times. They're like, I'm going to say the wrong things. And I'm like,
Hmm.
whatever. You say the wrong thing, I don't care because I know you love me. That's how I was. I'm like, doesn't matter. But I did feel, and all the way through, I did have this drive of kind of get through. And I had a couple bad setbacks, a couple really bad setbacks. But I'm
Hmm.
just like, nope, we're gonna. So I was in this get it done mode most of through 6 months of treatment.
Yeah. So that moment in the car, was that like the breakdown? Did you allow yourself that just
I did.
total loss
Yep,
of control of your emotions and those sorts of things? I think because I do think that's an important step too,
it
is
is.
sort of the acceptance
It
of the
is.
unknown
Yeah, it
and the
is.
lack
And
of
I did.
control.
Yeah, I wallowed.
Yeah. Well,
I
you and I think you get
wallowed.
to wallow.
I did. And I did that a couple of times, by the way, where I called my sister and be like, oh, and I would do it. And then as I said, put my big girl panties on. I would buck up, as my mother would say, and I would do it. But I did allow myself to have a pity party once in a while.
Yeah, well, I think you have to, or you're avoiding, right?
Right.
Because it is a stark reality and it's a change in your whole perspective going forward.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about grief. Because when you get a diagnosis like this,
Mhm.
and I have not had one like that, but I have a child who had a chronic problem.
Mhm.
Um, there's a grief of, at least I experienced, and I would imagine you probably did too, of the known and the familiar, and the grief of the trust that you're healthy and that everything is fine. And
Mhm.
it is a life change because for you, this is something that's a chronic condition. You're going to have to navigate this for the rest of your life, right?
Right.
So, did you go through a period of grief of a new normal and a new perspective?
My grief didn't happen until after.
Mm,
And I've been talking to a lot of different people. I had my last chemo treatment in May. And I felt like, even when I was ended up in the hospital and different things that happened, I'm like, I'm going to get through this. And there is this drive. And then, but what happens is you have your last treatment, and then, what I thought was, I'm going to get my port out. It's all going to be okay. And then it's not.
mm,
And that's when I had a couple moments of, okay, Karen, you got it. you got to look yourself in the mirror and realize it's changed. And that was hard. And it
Yeah,
continues to
it's
be
not
hard, by
just
the way. It's
it,
hard. It's hard.
yeah. It's not just going to go back to the normal that you knew
Right.
before. So what does that feel like? What is, I mean, because I feel like that's something you're still kind of coming to terms with. I mean,
Hmm.
May is not that long ago. And I
No.
know we've
Yeah.
talked a little bit about, I think it was Princess Kate
Yes.
who had said the harder part is afterwards, and she didn't expect that. And you mentioned to me that you really felt that same
And I
feeling.
felt validated when she said it because I was
Hmm.
going through this. And I'm like, because again, because what we typically do, people do this when people die too. That not
Yeah.
the person that's the closest to the person that died. Okay, fine, sad, let's move on. I think that's just
Hmm.
part, and there is something where yes, we need to move on. But there's something when you're going through this, is I
Right.
tried all summer. I had some setbacks in my health. We thought I had cancer back again.
Hmm.
I had some different things happen there. I would wake up thinking, it's back. I mean, I had a lot I was dealing with over the summer, and just again through prayer, through friends, just really working. And I'm still where I'm going to continue working through it. And there is a sorrow of I got to really eat healthy. I got to, I said I thought I ate healthy, but no, not as much as I could have. So,
Right.
so right, it is a new life, and there is a grief
Hmm.
for that. And so I'm navigating that, and it's hard. And it's funny because I was getting having just some different tests and everything. I have to do monthly checkups. And I mentioned to the nurse, I said, we don't talk, or you really don't talk a lot about the after. And I was sharing with her how hard it was. She goes, you know what? You're right. We don't. We're just trying to get you through it. And we had this
Hmm.
great conversation. And I said, I just think more people need to talk about how what to fact. And I'm going to like the wellness house here. So I'm doing more things, but I think many people don't think about that after, and,
Yeah.
and
And
how
it's
and how
one
am I going to
thing,
live with it now?
yeah, it's one thing to think, okay, now I'm going to eat even healthier. I'm going to have the cleanest diet anybody's ever seen. I'm going to make sure that I'm exercising exactly how I'm supposed to. Like, but also you do get to take a day off, or you do get to have a piece of cake
Hmm.
here and there. I mean, like so you've
Yes.
got to balance.
Yes.
I've got to do the best I can to take care of myself, but I've also still got to live, a
Yes.
life where I don't feel completely constricted by this. But
Exactly.
mostly the emotional toll of recalibrating how you look at the future.
It's exhausting.
Yeah, I
But
can
then I will
imagine.
share. Then you talk about gifts. Here are
Hmm.
the gifts, because
Yes.
it is. I mean, candidly, it is, and it's trying to, and it is the faith, fear. And I want to, even if I have the fear, because we're wired to think, to go into that fear. That's right. That's kind of how we're all wired. Our brains are wired that way. We go there first. So the goal would be to, how can I get myself back thinking more of the faith, more of the positive, kind of, I call it above that line. How do I do that? What are things I can do? And
Hmm.
that is mindset. That's what we're thinking. And it's being more intentional even on how I do that. I taught people a lot about that. So it's, how do I live that? That's the first thing. The second thing that's changed is, yeah, even though, I mean, it is annoying with the whole food thing and everything. I'm not a big food person anyhow. So that is, and I've just had to learn to live with that. But it is being more intentional in that way. The third gift is that it's interesting. I'm much more on how I lead my time, live my time, how I spend my time, who I spend my time with. I
Hmm.
think sometimes it would be I'd let the day run me a little bit, and how I did things. I'm much more intentional on, how do I want to spend this day? How do I want to make more use of this day? And on my downtime, making sure that I give time to my friends, my friendships. I always did that a little bit, and I did do that. So I had great, amazing friends,
Hmm.
but how can I even do it more? Because I don't know none of us really know when our last day is, but how can I do that? And then on the work, what are some things I can continue to do to keep providing that value? Again, I
Hmm.
had it, but it adds this level of intensity to it that is just refreshing. So those are some things.
So let's talk a little bit about the people because I think you've talked to me before about having a great network of friends and having long-term relationships and things like that. So I know sometimes when I've one of the things that inspired this podcast was the gifts I experienced during a time like that and the friends who would just show up in the driveway with dinner without even asking. I mean,
Yeah.
that surrounded you during this time and did not have to be asked. They just did. So talk to me a little bit about the people and the community that you have surrounding you that you became more even grateful for.
So I have all these amazing friends. I have different group friends. I mean, I have high
Mhm.
school friends from years ago. I have like a small group Bible study friends. I have close friends that when I first moved to Chicago. I have a friend who I exercise with. So I mean, even my work, I have work friends. So I have all these different pockets. And what was amazing to me, because I am one of those, I can do everything myself. And I
Mhm.
had to allow others to do it for me. So that was one thing. Oh my gosh, though, the cards, the presents. I have to tell you, I've learned how to be a better friend when someone's in crisis. I'm
Mhm.
like, I stunk at that. I now look at it. I mean, they would send me small Bible verses or a small poem. I got cards. One of my friends sent me like a card almost every few weeks with a nice note in it. And when people say they're going to pray, there are people that really do pray. Because sometimes,
Mhm.
when people are like, oh, I'll say a prayer for you, I'll say a prayer for you. I had people that truly prayed for me.
Mhm.
And that's when you talk about that. I'm like, wow, how they showed up for me
Mhm.
was mind blowing. And again, one of the gifts is I now know I'm a better friend in the times of crisis. And
Mhm.
I now know almost a little bit more about what to say and what to do. And those
Mhm.
little small things, they're not small, they're big. They're really big to someone who's going through a death or an illness or some kind of trouble.
Mhm. Well, and as you're talking, I'm starting to think in terms of perspective, did you really realize how much you meant to people? I think that's a gift when you
Yeah.
go through something like
Yeah.
that too. We all go through lives and we think, oh, that's a really good friend and that's a really good friend, whatever.
Mhm.
But when they show up for you like that, or someone takes time out of their day to routinely send you a card and doesn't let it just be, oh, you got cancer, there's a diagnosis, and then you never hear from them again unless there's
Yeah.
another big crisis. You know, did you find yourself feeling like, oh wow, I I I I knew we were friends, but now I really know that I meant this much to them or
Yes.
mean this
And,
much
and
to them.
and how much I meant to them and then how much they mean to me.
Hmm.
And I had, people that clients that, we have a good relationship. And just
Hmm.
even that, it just deepened everything. And a much more appreciation of
Hmm.
friends. Again, them appreciating me and me appreciating them as well. So yes, and I felt so loved. The doctor kept asking me, it was like, they do the routine questions all the time. And he's like, do you have a good network? Because that's an important part. It's an important part about, even survival and how you get through things. And I said, I have the best network ever.
That is amazing, and that is such a gift. And if nothing else, the reinforcement of the knowledge of all of that.
Mm,
And I do love the part about learning to be a better friend because now you know what was so meaningful to you that
yes.
you can then pass that on to the next person.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about the gift of perspective because I think that would be probably one of the hardest things I would imagine to struggle through is
Mhm.
looking at every day and looking at the future and looking at, so you did have a little scare where you thought it might
Mhm.
have come back. And I know that set you back
It did.
emotionally. Talk a little bit about that because this may be something, and it turned out to be nothing, but how do you live with the constant ups and downs of that lack of security of knowing that that's not a risk? You don't have that anymore.
Yeah, it's something I continue to struggle with. I don't have it totally figured out yet. Um, so how I'm navigating, because candidly, what I have could turn into some other type of cancer too, with just the my bone marrow and everything. So it's one of those things where you don't know. So it is a struggle. And I will share with you that there are several things. First of all, It's not allowing my mind to go to the fear. And it is the choosing I have to, it's the faith piece of God, you have me. And you know what? Even if tomorrow's my last day, you have me. And it's having that mindset of we don't know when our last days are. I mean, I don't mean to sound depressing, but we don't.
Hmm.
So I'm like, at least I know what's going on in my body because some people don't know that right until it's too late. So I can be preventative with that and just know also he has me. He has me. He loves me. And you know, it's interesting. The Lord's Prayer has been good for me. You know, on nights where like I can't sleep or I'll recite the Lord's Prayer. And it's that
Hmm.
faith of whatever happens. Because it's not like, oh, I'm going to be healed. It's he's there with me and my friends are with me. So it's my mind. It's what I'm feeding in my mind. That's one thing that's really important. And second is it's the how do I choose to spend my time, spending my time with it's interesting with my grandkids and my kids. It was always special to me, but there's a sweetness even when I say hello or goodbye and spending that time with them. It's really being way more in the present. And
Yeah.
I've learned how to because I've always been like next, 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 because that's part of, you know, I've been very successful in business. And part of that is, right, it's the constant. I'm learning, nope, gotta slow down because I don't know when my last day is. Again, none of us do, but I really, it's right there. And learning where it's just let me just slow down and be in this moment, enjoy coloring with my little 3 and 5 year old grandkids and things like that. So I'm learning to live in the moment more because of this.
And it's reinforced your priorities of what is like we can say
Yes,
family's most important, faith is important, this is important, more above work or whatever. But a lot of times our actions don't reflect that
right.
because we are driven, we do have priorities, we have things we have to get at work, we have a lot of responsibilities. Um, so it sounds like in terms of really living the priorities, you have made somewhat of a shift there.
Yes. You know, and even at work, because I love work. Work is not work
Hmm.
for me. I love work. I love doing what I'm doing. And
Hmm.
and even with work, what am I choosing to focus on? Choosing to focus on helping and coaching people to get better. To me, that's the give back. And
Right.
because that helps me, right? It helps me physically, mentally, because I feel like I'm giving back. So even choose, and you know what? And not doing some of the things I don't want to do. You know, because I used to just say yes to everything. And now I'm like,
Hmm.
no, I don't think so. I don't think that's how I want to spend my time. And so that's again, I have that luxury. Some people don't have that luxury to do that, but I do. And so it's even like, where do I choose to spend my time at work so I can help make a difference with other people as well? And how do I give back to my team? How do I keep lifting them up? So it is a different mindset even at work. And what are some
Hmm.
things that I can do to help others?
Yeah. Well, and I think that's got to be kind of fun to have
It
this
is.
fresh outlook on it and to really know that you are empowered to make these decisions, um, to spend your time the way that you want to. But also, do you find yourself feeling more grateful for every day?
Oh, yes. And the small stuff is the small stuff. I would get kind of whipped out over some stuff, and I'm like, doesn't matter, doesn't matter. I mean, I'm way better with all that than I used to be, you know, because I'm like, no, I now know, I now know some of the bad stuff. So I'm like, okay, that's not bad. That no, we can figure that out. So yes, perspective has been a great gift for me.
So, what would be your advice to someone who's going through a similar experience now? And I know you haven't got it all figured out because
Mhm.
you're still navigating this new normal that you have, but from the perspective of what people need when they go through this or how they can help themselves navigate this, what
Mhm.
kind of advice would you give?
First of all, make sure that you've got a good network around you because that's important. Second, whatever that faith piece is, that's such an important part. And we all have different ways that we deal with that. But the faith, having that faith community or faith person or whatever that connection is. Third was advocate for yourself. Take care of
Mhm.
yourself and advocate for yourself. Do research, understand what's happening. Four would be make sure it's how do I say this? There's going to be bumps. There are going to be bumps. I mean, when I was put in the hospital, I mean, I was at work. and started absolutely like shaking. And anyhow, so I ended up having to go to the hospital, was in the hospital for 4 days. So, but okay, that was just being stubborn. So taking care of myself and realize there's going to be setbacks and just go with the setbacks and don't be devastated by the setbacks, but just kind of go, I'm going to have them. And the last one is that just because, with cancer, at least when people do cancer diagnosis, just because you take the last treatment does not mean that's it. And so
Hmm.
really try to figure out that how you can work through all that after stuff.
Hmm. Yeah, I like all that. And then what about allowing yourself that time for the grief? Because I
Mhm.
imagine even going forward, you've got to give yourself the grace and room to have those down
Mm.
moments,
Yes,
without beating yourself up over it, but also being able to move through it and get back on track to the positive mindset. So, what would you say
absolutely. Yeah,
about that?
I've actually carved because I used to have a pretty packed schedule.
Hmm.
So I allow time, where sometimes even at lunch, I never used to take lunch or go to lunch or anything. And now I'll go and just like walk around the mall. That's one of the things that I do more effectively, that I didn't used to do. I used to just go from, I mean, I had a packed schedule, literally 1 hour to the next hour to the next hour with not even breaks. And I'd be eating lunch at like 2 or 3 o'clock. I know, not a good thing. So I'm learning to carve out that time. Sometimes I'll just get in the car and go grab something and just sit in the car in the sunshine and just breathe. I also listen to some different podcasts. Making sure that I do a devotion thing, just allowing for that peace and allowing for that time that whatever comes into my thinking, I'm allowing space for that, so I'm not constantly ignoring it because we have to face it. We have to face it, and we have to face each day. And so those are some of the things that I've done to allow some of that time and being more intentional about how I spend my time and what I spend my time on allows me also to take that time to think and be.
Yeah, I think that is important. I think it's important to allow yourself, like you said, anything that comes to your mind and just accepting it and processing it and moving through it and then moving back into the things you've got to do.
Yeah, and I will say, don't beat yourself up
Hmm.
overthinking negatively because I did that for a while. Isn't that interesting? Because again, I teach people how to do this. I talk about positive mindset. And then when you're in the depths of things, and this happened to me a little bit where I'm like, why am I why am I thinking this and how do I get out of it? And because people would say, I will please don't say sometimes to people, all you need is a positive mindset. Oh my gosh, it's more than that. And that is good. But when you don't have it, don't beat yourself up over it. Don't beat yourself up because that then takes you down a spiral. So I've learned to soak in that for a while. And I know
Yeah.
I try to get it back up. So I don't mean soak in it for days, but
Mhm.
allow a little bit of time to go, okay, all right, okay, let me get my head around this. So don't
Mhm.
deny it.
Well, that's the truth. And I think you and I have some perfectionism qualities in common. And I think that's what we
Yes,
do. We beat each other up when we don't feel like we're living up to our own expectations.
right.
And you get to be sad and you get to
Yeah,
be scared and you get to have those feelings. And if you don't, that's probably more detrimental to your mental health. Um, and allowing, like you said, allowing that space for whatever comes to your mind, and then knowing, I think having faith in yourself that you will move past that and you will get back into the mode of the positive mindset and keeping yourself on track.
yeah,
I think sometimes that faith in yourself wavers when you do beat yourself up over having normal human emotions. We're not robots, right?
right. And taking the faith in yourself to also making sure you expand that to faith in others, faith in a higher being, right? There's when you look at all that, you realize I'm human. How about
Hmm.
it? I'm human. I'm gonna feel this way. How do what are some ways I can, why am I feeling this? Right?
Hmm.
And then trying to figure it out, but don't just ignore it and run past it.
Yeah.
And I've that's been something after
Mm.
the last treatment, even to now, I'm working on because it's so critical to my health and my well-being.
Mhm. So when you look at your future now, what do you see?
I see continuing to focus on the things I love to do, doing more of that executive coaching, doing more working, working with leaders on how they can get better because that jazzes me. I love it. It just it excites me because it's such a it's a critical part to companies, right? We spend so
Mhm.
much time working. It's nice if we all can have great environments to be in and work in. Want to lift my team up. I have these amazing team and want to see them continue to take some of what I do, rise up as leaders so then I
Mhm.
can spend more time coaching and working with people, spending more time with family, with those little babies and enjoying every minute I can. I've done a lot of travel work-wise and I've done some travel, but even increasing that and having some places I always wanted to go to. So I
Mhm.
already have a couple trips planned and focused on that and trips with people that I love to travel with. And so those are some of the things that I'm working on.
I love it. Is there anything that I have not asked you that you want to share?
No, I don't. I was
No?
trying to think. I don't think so. No.
Good. Well, thank you so much, Karen. I think sharing this story is so important, and I do think it needs to spark a conversation for people who have gone through and are going through this kind of thing. And I did not ever stop and think about how people felt afterward. You see people ring the bell and you think, okay, it's done.
Yeah,
And nobody does talk about the aftermath of how that affects you emotionally, whether it's a cancer that is more definitive and defined beginning and end, or one that is more chronic and continuing. So I think, if anybody listening has had these experiences or has not felt like they had a community, I think we would love to hear from you and sort of spark this conversation for people to understand that there is aftercare um, after the diagnosis, after the end of treatment, and after most people think things are done.
absolutely.
So, all right. Thank everyone for listening to The Gift of the Struggle. Thank you to Karen Kimsey-Sward, and tune in next time as we discover more gifts of the struggle.